This project is beginner friendly. The only prior knowledge you need is how to create a slip knot and how to chain. We're gonna go ahead and create our slip knot. I'm starting with the 3.25 mm hook. We're gonna begin by chaining 13. There's a couple stitches that I want you to place a stitch marker on, and this will really help you if you are a beginner. The first one's going to be the very last chain that we made. And when you stitch mark this, I want you to just go into the loop on the right side. So right like this. We're going to do the same exact thing to the very first chain. The next chain we're going to put a stitch marker on is going to be the 7th chain. So just count up from the bottom and put a stitch marker on the 7th. For this one, it doesn't matter where you put the stitch marker. I'm just gonna put it around both of the loops, just like this. Now you can make your bag any size that you want. If you want to make your bag smaller or bigger than I am, all you need to do is when you chain, make sure it is an uneven number. And then you will mark the first and the last stitch, just like we did here. And then you will just find the middle stitch between both of these and you will mark that one. Now we are going to chain 2. These 2 chains are going to be our turning chains and they will not count as a stitch. What we're going to be doing is working around the foundation chain. So the first side we'll be working down this side, and then we'll come down here, and then we're going to work down this side. And when we work on the first side, we are going to be working on this side here on these loops. Now, something I personally like to do when I'm working around the foundation chain, especially on the first side, is I will work through this loop, and then if you turn your chain around, these bumps back here, these are referred to as the back bumps, and I also like to work through the back bumps. First side, I will grab this loop here, and I will also go through the back bump. So it's these 2 loops right like this. And then that's gonna leave a loop on this side. Now, if you find that to be too complicated, if you are pretty new to crocheting, you can just do this loop. There's no problem with that. It's not going to be any different. The only reason why I like to work through both loops is because I just think it gives a tighter finish down here and you won't have any gaps in your foundation chain. But it'll still be totally fine if you just want to work through this loop if you find working through both loops to be too complicated. So we're going to begin in the 3rd chain. It's a chain that we have a stitch marker in. We are going to make a double crochet, and that is the main stitch that we're going to be using through this bag. To make a double crochet, we need to first put an extra loop on our hook. So yarn over and put that extra loop on your hook. And then looking at your chain here, I'm going to insert through the side loop on the left. And then I'm also, like I said, I'm gonna grab this back bump, but you don't have to grab that back bump if you don't want to. Now we are going to yarn over and we're gonna pull through that stitch. You're gonna pull up 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Now I want you to mark that first double crochet with a stitch marker. In this same stitch, we are going to be inserting 2 more double crochets. If you look at your stitch here, if you kind of pull the stitch marker down, you can see this is where your first double crochet was. So that is where we're going to put 2 more. Yarn over, insert into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Let's insert 1 more double crochet. Yarn over, insert into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I also want to say, if you did make this a different size, you are still going to be doing the exact same steps. The only thing that's going to change is how many double crochets we have in between the first and the last stitch. Because we did an increase, identifying the next stitch can be a little bit tricky. So you see how my next chain here looks a lot smaller than this one? So this is, in fact, our next chain, this little guy right here. Now we are going to make 11 double crochets in each chain, but we're going to stop before we get to the last chain. So let's insert a double crochet into that next stitch. So I'm grabbing that loop there. And again, if you want, you can just grab that loop, and then I'm going to grab that back bump as well. And then just make your double crochet. If you're doing the back bump as well, like I am, this can get a little bit confusing. So as you can see here, here's where our double crochet is. And if you look at the next chain, right there is where we're going to be inserting. And when you insert right here, it's going to grab both of these loops here. So go into that next stitch and put a double crochet. And then let's continue to make double crochets until we get to this stitch marker here. I am now at my stitch marker. I'm just going to go ahead and remove it, and then I'm going to add my double crochet into that stitch. And then I'm just going to add my stitch marker back on the top of that double crochet. Now let's continue to make the rest of our double crochets on this side. Okay, I'm now at my last chain, and we are going to insert 5 double crochets into this chain. Go ahead and insert your first double crochet, and then insert another one, 3, after my third double crochet, I'm going to kind of turn this so that I can start to work on the other side. Now we're going to insert our last 2 double crochets where this loop is with our stitch marker on it. At this point as well, I'm also going to carry our tail from the chain with us because I'm going to hide it through this yarn as we're working. So go ahead and make another 2 double crochets and make sure you place this tail over top of your hook. And then make your double crochet, and you will just keep placing that tail over your hook. You can go ahead and remove this stitch marker. Now we're going to be working with the leftover loops on this side. These loops right here, these are where we're going to be working into. Let's make a couple together on this side. So go ahead and make your next double crochet. We're going to be making 11 double crochet, and again you're going to stop before you get to your stitch marker. Look for your next loop, and then you're going to put a double crochet into that, and then look for your next loop and insert your double crochet. So this is how it is looking so far. And now I'm going to make the rest of my double crochets, and you're going to stop before you get to your next stitch marker. At this point, I'm just going to drop this tail and leave it there. You can cut off the excess yarn whenever you would like. Now that we are at our stitch marker, we are going to insert 2 double crochet into this stitch. Just like that. And now we can remove this stitch marker here. Now that we are back at our stitch marker, I'm going to show you how to close the round. And this is going to be the same for each round on the bag. So where your first double crochet is, we are going to insert our hook. We're going to make a slit stitch. Yarn over, pull through that stitch, and then pull it through your loop, just like that. I completely forgot to mention, but I wanted to also mark the stitch that's right across from this one. So look at your stitches here. This right here, this is the slip stitch that we just made, so ignore that one. And then count 1, 2, because that's the 2 stitches we made in the last stitch. And then you're just going to find your middle point again. Since mine is 11 double crochet, the 6th stitch is going to be what's in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this one right here, insert your stitch marker into that stitch. I'm going to show you how to begin the next round, and this is going to be the same way that you begin it while you are working on your pouch here. So you're going to chain 2, and this does not count as a stitch. And then you're just going to insert a double crochet into that first stitch. And then put your stitch marker back on the first stitch so that you know where it is. On this round, we are just going to be inserting double crochets in every stitch around. For mine, the total amount of stitches that we will have at the end of each round is going to be 32. So just make a double crochet into each stitch just like this. And I'm going to show you what to do when you get to your stitch markers. I'm at my first stitch marker. I'm going to insert a double crochet. And then I'm going to take the stitch marker out, and I'm going to put the stitch marker around the double crochet. So I'm grabbing the stitch just like that, and then placing my stitch marker there. This stitch marker, and same with this one when you get around to here, is just going to stay around this double crochet. So we won't have to change this from now on. Just keep this stitch marker around this stitch here, and then just continue your double crochets as normal. Just place a double crochet into each stitch. When you get to the next stitch marker, you're going to do the same exact thing. And what this is marking here is it's marking where the middle of our bag is, because that's where we are going to put our seed. At the end, when we go to embroider the seeds on, that's going to help keep the seeds nice and centered in the middle of your bag. Also on this round, you're going to notice that this is going to start to curl up. And this is exactly what we want, because at this point we're not increasing or anything, we're just putting a double crochet into every stitch. That's going to make our bag just come up. We are going to continue just putting a double crochet in each stitch around for 7 rounds in total, including this as the first round, this is the second round, and you'll continue to do this until you've done 7. And you can of course do more rounds if you would like a longer pouch. I am done with my 7 rows, and here is how my pouch is looking. Once you finish your last row with the main color, you are going to cut your yarn and fasten off. You'll chain 1 and then just pull this yarn tail through. Before we finish anything else, I like to put my seeds onto my pouch at this point. I find it a lot easier to do before I add the top and everything else. You can put your seeds on randomly if you would like. I personally like to plan mine out because I like them to be in a certain pattern. So our stitch marker that we marked on round 2, that is going to be our bottom seed. And then I'm going to have 3 rows of seeds in total, and I skip a row between each one. So since this is our center point, I'm going to count up from there. That's my next center point. I'm going to then count over 1, 2, 3. I'm going to mark that 3rd stitch with a stitch marker, and I'm bringing it all the way around the stitch. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So here's my center, and then 1, 2, 3. And then on the next row, I am going to mark the center point for that one, because I will be putting 3 seeds on the top here. And then I like the seeds on the top to go further out than these ones right here. So I'm gonna count over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think 5 will be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you just check that and see if you like that placement. I am happy with mine. Let's go ahead and add our seeds now. Now you're gonna take another color. For this strawberry, I'm going to use white seeds. Now we are going to double up our yarn. So I want you to cut a pretty long tail. Sorry, it's hard to show all of it in the camera here, but here is my yarn tail. It's always best to go longer than you think you need than to go shorter. And we are going to double this up. So make sure you fold it in half because that's what your actual length is going to be for this. I'm adding my yarn tail to my darning needle, and then again, I'm going to bring it through here because I'm going to fold this in half. Try to adjust this to make your ends somewhat even, and then here is how mine looks. Now we're gonna flip this inside out. So since we've clearly marked this with the stitch markers here and I can see exactly where my bottom is, so we are going to secure the yarn and make a little knot on the back. So I'm going to kind of pull in the yarn towards where that first stitch is. I don't like to go through too many because I don't want the other color to be showing through on the other side. So I'm really close to my stitch now. We're going to be inserting like right here. I'm going to insert my needle through some stitches here because I'm going to make a knot. So as I am pulling it through, I'm going to take the yarn and I'm going to wrap it around really tightly 2 times. And then I'm going to pull this through. And we're going to pull really tightly here. And this makes a knot. Evie's going to help us today. So we're going to find our stitch marker, and this is the bottom of that stitch right here. So we're going to bring our needle through, and then I'm going to turn this back around. And then just carefully bring your tail through. Make sure you check the inside, just make sure nothing's like tangled up in there or anything before we begin. Okay, now we're going to remove this stitch marker. Our seeds are going to be 1 stitch in length. What I like to do for these is I'm going to take my needle in between my yarn tails here, insert it through the top of the stitch, and then I'm going to come out near the bottom of a nearby stitch. You want to try to travel as little as you can. And then I'm going to bring this through slowly. When you get down to just having a little bit of yarn here, go really slow. It looks like I have one tail that's not going through as much, so I'm going to figure out which one that is. And I'm going to pull that because I want this to be even. So that is perfect. I'm also going to take my needle and put it under these 2 strands. And I'm just going to kind of go like this just to loosen it up a little and make it look really nice and even. Just like that. Now we're doing this one, so we're going to remove this stitch marker. And we're going to do the same exact thing. So insert in between your 2 strands. And then go through the top of the stitch. And make sure you're not piercing anything because that is going to make it a lot harder to get your yarn through. And now I'm going to bring this up through to the next closest stitch. Okay, so I have another tail that I need to tighten again. Just like that. And then I'm going to loosen this up. There we go. And now I'm going to repeat the same thing for the rest of the stitches. Also, what I'm going to do on this stitch, I'm just going to go through. You don't have to go to your next stitch right away. So let me just show you that real quick. And then when I go over to this stitch, because I'm at the top right now, I'm actually going to start at the top of this one. You don't have to start at the bottom. And it's just the same exact thing, just in reverse. So you're going through your yarn tail again, and then you're inserting down at the bottom, and you're just going to bring this through the same way. Now I'm going to complete my last 2 seeds. There we go, my seeds are all done and it looks really cute. And now I'm going to show you how to secure your yarn. We're going to turn our project inside out again. I'm going to insert this through a couple of stitches here and just bring this through. And then what you want to do is reinsert through a few stitches. And then you just take your yarn that's right here and you wrap it around your hook twice. And you want to hold it very tightly. And then you just pull this through. And then as it gets smaller here, you can let this go. And then you might need to pull on like one strand if one of them is kind of stuck. And then just make sure it's really nice and tight there, just like that. And then I'm just going to secure the ends through a few pieces. Checking the front seems okay, so I'm going to cut this off. There we go, and that is how you do the seeds. And I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side. It's up to you if you would like to do this double-sided or if you just want to leave it on one side, that's also fine. For round 8, we are going to be starting our green color now. To attach a new color, we're gonna go to the first stitch, insert your hook through that stitch, and then wrap this yarn around your hook and then slide it through. I like to kind of hold the tail while I'm doing this to keep it tight. But we are going to chain 1. And I'm just going to pull on this to make sure it's tight. And then I am grabbing the tail from our pink and this green tail because I'm going to hide them through the stitches here. On this round, we are just going to do single crochets in every stitch. To make a single crochet, insert into the stitch. And then place these yarn tails over top of your hook, just like this. And then for my single crochets, I like to do a yarn under and then a yarn over. You can do a yarn over if you would prefer. It doesn't matter. I just like the look of the yarn under one better. To make the yarn under one, you're just going to take your hook and you're going to wrap the yarn under your hook, bring up 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. And if you want, you can go ahead and stitch mark the first single crochet. Continue to take these 2 strands with you for several stitches. So insert into the next stitch, yarn under, pull up 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. Insert into the next stitch, yarn under, pull up 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So like I said, I'm going to hide these tails for several stitches, probably until I get somewhere around to here. And I'm just going to continue around and make single crochets in every stitch just like this. I am at the end of round 8 and I'm going to close my round by slip stitching to the first single crochet. And this is how my round 8 looks. I'm going to go ahead and just cut off these 2 yarn tails now. For round 9, we're going to do the same thing, except in this round, we are only going to be working into the back loops. So we won't be working into both loops. This loop right here facing you, this is the front loop, the one that is closest to you. And these loops back here, these are called the back loops. To begin the round, chain 1, and then we're going to make a single crochet, but only into the back loop. But actually, before we start that, I do want you to mark 2 stitches just so that you know exactly where they are. We're going to be revisiting the front loops at a later time. So I want you to look for your last single crochet, and I want you to place a stitch marker right there in the front loop. And you're just going to leave that there. Same with the very first stitch, we're going to grab just the front loop because I don't want you to get confused by the slip stitch later. So let's go ahead and just leave both of those loops marked. Beginning in our first back loop, so right here, grab that back loop with your hook and then make a single crochet. As always, you can mark the first stitch if you would like, and that's what we're going to be repeating all the way around here, grabbing this back loop and then making our single crochet. Back loop, single crochet. Now go ahead and repeat this the entire way around the row. At the end of this round, I am going to slip stitch to the first single crochet to close the round. Round 10 is pretty much going to be what we've done down here, so you should already know how to do this round. We're just going to chain 2. And then we're going to insert a double crochet into every stitch. Just like that. So place a double crochet in every stitch, and then I will see you on the next round. You're going to end round 10 in the same way by just slip stitching to the first stitch. Round 11 is going to be a little bit different, and we're going to be doing a repeating pattern going around, and we're going to be working into the back loops. You just chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So we have our first stitch that we are technically on right now. So we're going to skip the next stitch. And in the third stitch, we are going to slip stitch into the back loop. And now we will repeat that. So chain 3, skip the next stitch. Into the third stitch, we are going to create our slip stitch into the back loop. So it'll look like this. Let's repeat that again. Chain 3, skip a stitch, slip stitch into the back loop of the third stitch. So it'll look just like this, and it will give us this cute little scallop border at the top. You're going to repeat this around, and then I will show you what to do at the end of this round. I just slip stitch into my last stitch here. Now, if you have more than one stitch left, that is totally okay. This pattern is very flexible, so if you ever need to adjust how many stitches you're skipping, that is totally fine. You shouldn't be able to tell. So at the end here, you will just leave off by chaining 3. And now we are going to just cut our yarn. I'm going to pull the yarn through. We are going to insert into the back loop of the first stitch. And you're going to pull your needle through. I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab the back loop of the last chain. So it looks like this. And I'm going to pull this through. And then I'm going to tighten this here. And this just gives us a cleaner finish here. And then turn this around so that you're looking at the inside. Insert the needle through a few nearby stitches to secure the end. And then I'm going to go down through another nearby stitch. And then I'm going to reinsert my needle back through that same stitch because I'm going to make a little knot. So slowly pull this through. And then pull your needle through this loop that has formed. And then tighten this. And that will secure the yarn here. And now I'm just going to weave this end through the inside of the bag. I'm going to turn this inside out to make it a little bit easier. To weave in your ends, you're just going to go through some random stitches nearby and just keep pulling your needle through. And now I'm going to go back in the opposite direction. And now I'm going to cut off my yarn tail. Here's how our top looks now, and it looks really cute. Now we're going to work into the front loops that we left right here that we marked from round 9. And we're going to make little scallops going around here. Now when I work these, I actually like to start from the last stitch and then work around that way. So this time I'm going to go ahead and put a slip knot on my new color that I'm going to attach, and then just insert your hook and tighten that, and then take it out. Go to the front loop only of that last stitch that we left, insert your hook, and then place this over your hook and pull it through. We're going to do a repeating pattern similar to what we did at the top here. We're going to begin by chaining 4. And now we are going to make a treble crochet into this same stitch here. To make a treble crochet, it's just 1 stitch higher than a double crochet. And to make that, we need to add an extra loop onto our hook. So instead of yarning over once, you're going to yarn over twice. So now I have 2 extra loops on my hook. I'm going to insert into that first stitch, yarn over, and you're going to have 4 loops. This first one is always a little bit awkward since we're attaching our new color here. Yarn over, pull through 2, just like a double crochet, but we're gonna have an extra 2 loops to go through. So then we yarn over, pull through 2 again. We have 2 loops left, and then we yarn over and pull through 2 again. Now we are going to skip 2 stitches, and in the 3rd stitch, we are going to insert our hook, and we are going to slit stitch. I'm not going to bring my yarn tail with me this time. We will have to weave that in after because we skipped too many stitches to really weave it into this part. Well, let's repeat our pattern again. Chain 4, make a treble crochet, so yarn over twice, put 2 loops on your hook, insert into that same stitch, yarn over, pull up 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Skip 2 stitches, and then slip stitch into the 3rd. And let's go over that together one more time. Chain 4, we're going to make a treble crochet, so place 2 loops on the hook, insert into the same stitch, yarn over, pull up 4 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Skip 2 stitches and insert a slip stitch into the 3rd. Here's how the scallop border is looking, and you're just going to repeat this same thing going the whole way around, and then I will show you what to do at the end. Okay, so I am back around. I'm at the end of this now, and it is okay if you don't have the perfect amount of stitches remaining. Just like the other one, it's pretty flexible, and you can always adjust how many stitches you're skipping. We're gonna make our last cluster now. I have 4 stitches remaining, but I'm just going to do the same thing, and I'm gonna skip 2. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the 3rd. And I'm going to make my last cluster. Okay, when I'm done with my last one, I am not going to slip stitch it. Now, if you do find the invisible join to be too complicated, you can just slip stitch to the 1st stitch and then fasten off, that's totally fine. If you want to try the invisible join, lift up your hook, cut the yarn, and then pull this through. This invisible join will be a little bit easier to do than the one that we did up here, because this one we left off with a chain as our last stitch, and that just makes it a little bit harder. Whereas this one we have an actual stitch. So this stitch that our yarn's coming through right now, we are going to be coming back through this. Now I'm gonna go ahead and insert through that chain one. I'm gonna bring my needle through, and then I'm coming back to that treble crochet, and I'm going to just pull the needle through that back loop. And as you can see, this kind of makes like a fake stitch here, which just gives us a really clean ending. And now it looks like our other stitches. Now we're gonna turn this over, and this is a little bit awkward since it's a scallop, but I'm going to insert my needle through a nearby stitch here. And I'm gonna pull through slowly and leave a loop, and then I'm gonna insert this needle. And I'm gonna create a little knot there. Now I'm going to insert through some of these stitches here until I get to the actual body of the pouch. And then I'm gonna insert my needle through and bring it to the inside. I'm also going to take our tail and put it into the inside, and I'm going to weave in the ends, and then I will cut them off. That is our scallop border all complete. For this section, I will be switching to a smaller hook. I'm going to be using a 2.75 mm. I'm going to be making two little leaves that are connected, and this is going to be going at the end of our chain. So when we have our bag here, we'll have our chain, and then these two leaves will be connected to that. To begin our leaf, we're going to make a slip knot. And then we are going to chain 6. We're going to mark the first stitch with the loop on the right side. We're going to put a stitch marker there. And then in the second chain from the hook right here, we're going to insert another one on that side, just like that. On the first part of my chain, I'm going to be working just into the back bump. So these bumps right here. It's gonna be like it was for the strawberry pouch, except I'm not working through this stitch here. I'm only working through the back bump. And what that is going to do is it's going to give us this line that goes down the middle, which I just like how that looks. Here we're gonna skip the first chain, and then in the second chain, in the back bump, right here, we are going to make a single crochet. For these single crochets, I'm just using a yarn over single crochet instead of a yarn under. So I'm going to yarn over, pull up 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through both loops. If you're a beginner, you may want to mark that first stitch. In the next back bump, I'm going to insert a half double crochet. We haven't made a half double crochet yet, so I'm going to show you how to do that. We need to add a loop to our hook first, insert into that next back bump, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, and then pull through all 3 loops. Next stitch, we will make a double crochet. So yarn over, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. In the next stitch, we're going to make a half double crochet. So insert into the stitch, yarn over, pull up 3 loops, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. And in the last stitch, we're going to make a single crochet. That is one side of our leaf done. Now we are going to chain 2, and we're going to turn the work. So just like on the pouch, we are going to be grabbing the tail and working over that to weave it in. And where our stitch marker is, that is where we're going to be working into. So as you can see, we can see both chains here since we left that one loop. We are going to be working into the back loops back here. So where your first chain is, insert a single crochet and bring that tail over your hook. I'm going to remove the stitch marker. If you are a beginner and you get confused working around the foundation chain, you can always mark this first single crochet just so you know where that is the first stitch on the second side. We're just repeating what we did on the other side. In the next stitch, we are going to place a half double crochet in the next stitch, and just remember you're working into the back loop here. We are going to make a double crochet, a half double crochet into the next stitch, and where our stitch marker is, that is the first stitch that we started in, and we're going to put our last single crochet into that stitch. And then you can go ahead and remove that stitch marker. We are going to do a slip stitch to the first single crochet here. So insert your hook into that first single crochet and do a slip stitch. Just like that, and our first leaf is done. So this time we're going to be leaving one chain in between the leaves. Now we're going to chain 7. So just like before, the second chain from the hook is where our first stitch is going to be. Here's our chain 1 that we're not working into. So above that chain is going to be our last chain. So you'll place your 2 stitch markers right there. Now we are just going to repeat the exact same thing. So we're starting side 1 in the back bump, and we're starting in the second chain from the hook. Make a single crochet. In the next back bump, a half double crochet. And then a double crochet in the next stitch. In the next stitch, we are going to make a half double crochet. And in the last stitch here, we are going to place a single crochet. Now we're going to chain 2. And we're going to turn our work. So where our stitch marker is, that is the other side of the chain. And so that is the start of side 2. We're going to insert our single crochet there. In the next stitch, and remember that we're working into the back loops only on this side. So in the back loop only, make a half double crochet, and then a double crochet, and then a half double crochet, and then a single crochet. Okay, after the last stitch here, I am going to be doing an invisible join. Again, if you don't want to do an invisible join, you can just chain 1 and then do a slip stitch to the first single crochet. Go ahead and cut your yarn. I'm going to insert my needle through that first single crochet, and I'm going to pull away from me. And then I'm going to reinsert into the back loop of the last single crochet, and then pull this through. And there we go. Now we have a clean finish on our leaf, and I want you to turn it around. And if you just did a slip stitch, you're going to do the same thing here, except you don't need to make a knot to secure it. But if you did the invisible join, we're going to make a knot real quick. Insert through a nearby stitch, bring your needle through, leave a little loop, insert through the loop and pull through. Okay, and now we are just going to weave this end through the back of the leaf. Both of these ends are weaved in, so I'm going to cut them off. Okay, now we are able to fold our leaves with both of the wrong sides facing each other. Now we are going to be inserting our chains through our bag. I personally just like to put some yarn through this to figure out where my strings are going to be coming out of. You don't have to do this first. I just prefer to do that than try to figure it out with the chain. But all you do is you're going to get 2 ends and you're going to put it on your needle and you're going to insert under 2 and then over 2 and then you're going to be coming out like this, and you're just going to repeat that all the way around. You'll pull your yarn through. When you're planning this, it's best to start at the end where you want your yarn tail to come out of. So obviously we want that to be on the sides here. So you'll insert through the side wherever you want the yarn to come out. You'll bring it all the way around until you come back around here. And you may have a different stitch number between the stitches. Like on here, I only have 1. On some spots, I went under 3 instead of 2. Like right here, I went under 3 instead of 2. That way I could get the yarn tail to come out at the end here. I hope that makes sense, but after I bring the chain through, I will show you how to do that more. Let's go ahead and just start making our chain. I'm still going to use my smaller hook, the 2.75, and I'm just going to start chaining. I don't count my chains, I just start chaining a bunch of chains. After I have made several chains, I know that this isn't going to be long enough, but I'm going to start to take it through the bag and then I will continue chaining. Go ahead and take this end and place it on a needle. I'm going to go where I put one of my temporary yarn strands, and I'm going to follow the same course. So if you didn't put in one of these, that's where you're going to have to figure out how many stitches you need to go through. I'm just going to bring this through, and I definitely need to chain more, so I am going to start to chain more. Now I'm going to pull more of this through, and I'm just going to continue to bring this yarn around. When I need to pull on this, I like to put my hand in the bag and just hold it so that it's not tightening up. So my chain is way too long on this side. I'm first going to remove the guide I had here because I don't need that on this side anymore. So now you can see a little bit better. Here I have my 2 yarn tails, and it's way too long on this side. So I'm going to pull this out until I'm happy with the length of the end. I don't want it to be too long, so something like that seems good to me. So I chained way too many, so I'm going to undo those. So this seems pretty good, like this. After you have both ends through and you cut your yarn, to attach our leaf, all we are going to do is take the leaf, and this part can be a little bit finicky, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on both sides of that like extra chain that we made in the middle of the leaf. And so I'm going to take one side and I'm going to wrap it around and then just hold it there. Then I'm going to take the other side and do the same thing in the opposite direction. So I'm going to wrap it around this way. And now I'm going to tie a knot. After you tie your knot, now there's different ways that you can finish this. One way is you could take some glue and put it at the top and then just kind of attach all of this together here. Or if you really wanted to, you could also just glue both of the leaves together. I don't feel like looking for my glue, so I'm just going to show you how to hide this if you're not using glue. So you could just cut this and just, leave the 2 little tails right there. If you don't care, that's totally fine. And just leave it like that. Or you can hide the yarn tails through the back of the leaf. And then you can cut off these tails. And there we go. Now our little bag is all complete. I might end up gluing these leaves down. I'm not really sure yet. You can do whatever you would like. Thank you all so much for watching. I am trying to get to 1K subs before the end of the year. Any help with that would be really appreciated, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and like this video if you enjoyed this tutorial. Until next time, bye!